Snow drifted softly around the widow's lonely cabin, settling on the roof like a quiet memory. Inside, the warm glow of an oil lamp flickered against the wooden walls, casting long shadows that danced each time the wind sighed against the window panes. Mary Ellen Whitcomb, 58 years old and wrapped in her wool shawl, sat alone beside her small hearth, listening only to the fire and the sound of her own breath. Her husband had been gone 2 winters now. Her children lived far across the frontier, and most nights she spoke only to the silence. But that night something changed. A faint scratching touched her door. Slow, weak, almost apologetic. When she opened it, the cold rushed in, along with a thin, trembling stray dog whose eyes held the kind of sadness only the old and forgotten understand. She knelt, touching his frozen fur. "Come in, boy," she whispered, her voice cracking with a tenderness she hadn't used in years. She didn't know then, as she wrapped him in blankets and warmed him by the fire, that this dog carried a secret tied to her past, a secret tied to her husband, a secret that would change everything she believed about love, loyalty, and loss. And when she found out, it would break her heart all over again. The winter wind pressed against the worn wooden cabin like an old guest trying to come in without knocking. Snow twirled through the air in slow, drifting spirals, settling on the split-rail fence, the frozen well, and the lonely rocking chair on the porch. The frontier was quiet at this hour, quiet in that heavy way only the 1800s countryside could be when the fire was dying low and the horses had long fallen asleep in their stalls. Inside the cabin, Mary Ellen Whitcomb sat hunched near the hearth, her hands outstretched toward the fading glow of the embers. She was 58 years old, her hair a soft gray tucked beneath her wool shawl. Her blue calico dress had faded after years of wear, but she kept it mended, patching every tear with steady, patient stitches. It had been 2 winters since her husband, Thomas, passed from a fever that swept through their small valley. His boots still rested beside the door. His wool coat still hung on its peg. His handwriting still lived in the pages of the worn Bible on the table. Notes he'd written in the margins about the weather, the crops, the small blessings of each day. Mary Ellen had tried to keep those blessings alive. But some nights, the loneliness felt like a second winter settling deep into her bones. She pressed her palms close to the fire. The tea kettle beside her hissed faintly as the flame warmed it again. Her sigh filled the quiet room. Outside, the wind changed direction. She heard it whistle past the window, then fade. Then came a sound, a scratching, light, slow, as if something cold and tired begged for entrance. Mary Ellen lifted her head. "Just the wind," she murmured to herself. But it came again. Scratch, scratch. A soft whine followed. Her heart tightened. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped toward the door, each wooden board creaking beneath her boots. She paused, waiting, listening. Another small whine quivered through the cold air. She unlatched the door. A gust of wind shoved it wide, scattering snow into the house. And there, hunched beside the doorstep, was a thin, trembling dog covered in frost. Mary Ellen knelt without thinking. "Oh, sweetheart," she breathed, brushing snow from his back. "Where have you come from?" The dog looked up at her with weary brown eyes, eyes that carried a heaviness she recognized instantly. Aloneness, fear, years of being unseen. He was a medium-sized dog, ribs faintly visible beneath his winter coat. His fur was muddy and tangled, one of his ears torn slightly at the edge. He shivered as the wind brushed over him again. Mary Ellen's voice softened. "Come inside, boy. You'll freeze to death out here." He hesitated, pawing at the snow, but when she stepped aside and opened the door wider, he gathered what little strength he had and limped in. The warmth of the fire wrapped around him like an embrace. He paused, unsure, looking back at her with cautious gratitude. Mary Ellen closed the door, shutting out the winter cold. She guided him toward the hearth. "Sit near the fire. There you go." He curled into a small circle, trembling as he thought. Mary Ellen filled a small bowl with warm broth. "Drink this slowly," she said softly. He sniffed it, then lapped it eagerly. She sat beside him, watching him drink, watching the frost melt from his fur. The room brightened with the fire's glow, and for the first time in months, the quiet of the cabin felt different. Not less lonely, just shared. A presence. She reached out gently, letting her fingers brush his fur. The dog flinched lightly, then sighed and sank deeper into the blanket she placed beneath him. "You poor thing," she whispered. "Who left you out in this weather?" Her gaze drifted to his neck. There was no collar, no rope, but something caught her eye. A faint mark, almost hidden beneath his fur. A scar or a symbol of some sort. Mary Ellen leaned closer, but before she could look properly, the dog whimpered and nuzzled his head in her lap, seeking warmth. She smiled sadly. "All right, boy. We'll check later." As the dog slept, Mary Ellen brewed tea for herself, warming her hands on the tin cup. She glanced at the dog often, noticing the way his ears twitched, the way his breath shallowed when the wind howled. "He's frightened of the dark," she murmured. She knew that fear well. Her eyes drifted to Thomas's empty rocking chair. "How many nights did I sit in that chair waiting for you to walk home?" she whispered. The dog stirred, lifting his head as if he sensed her sadness. Mary Ellen smiled faintly. "You're a good listener already." He wagged his tail once, slowly. "Maybe I'll call you." She looked at him thoughtfully. "Ash." He blinked. "Because you came on a night when the fire was almost gone." She reached to pet him gently, and again she saw the faint mark on his neck, half hidden under a patch of thicker fur. A long, curved scar. Mary Ellen's brows tightened. "That looks like a rope burn," she whispered. "Who would treat a creature like that?" Before she could examine further, the dog suddenly lifted his head sharply, ears pricking toward the window. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Mary Ellen stiffened. "What is it, Ash?" He stood, shaky but alert, staring at the front door. Outside, something moved. The crunch of boots. Slow, deliberate. Someone was walking toward her cabin. Mary Ellen's heart pounded. No one visited at this hour. Not in winter. Not after dark. Ash growled deeper, his eyes fierce despite his weakness. He took a protective step in front of her. Mary Ellen blew out the lamp and crept to the window. Snow fell heavily, the world outside dim and ghostly in the moonlight. Then she saw it, a figure at the edge of her yard. Tall, wrapped in a coat, holding something long, a lantern or perhaps a cane. The figure paused, head slowly turning toward her cabin. Ash growled again. The figure started walking, slow, steady, determined, straight toward her door. Mary Ellen backed away from the window, her breath trembling. The dog positioned himself, weak, but ready, as if prepared to defend her with the last of his strength. A knock came, soft, measured. Mary Ellen froze. Another knock, harder this time. "Mrs. Whitcomb?" A man's voice, rough, weathered. Ash snarled. The voice spoke again. "I know you're in there. I saw the lamp. I'm not here to harm you. I only need to ask a question." Mary Ellen clutched her shawl close. The man stepped nearer, boots crunching loudly in the snow. "It's about a dog," he called. Her breath caught. Ash whimpered, backing up, and for the first time, Mary Ellen saw true fear in his eyes. He pressed against her leg, shaking. The man stopped right outside the door. His voice was colder now. "Have you seen one? Thin, brown fur, scar on the neck. He ain't friendly." Ash pressed closer, trembling violently. Mary Ellen placed a hand on his back. "It's all right, boy." Another knock, hard, impatient. Mrs. Whitcomb opened the door. She didn't move. Then the man's next words turned her blood to ice. "That dog ain't yours. He belongs to me. He ran away after the last beating. He don't know when to quit." Ash whimpered in terror. Mary Ellen's heart shattered. Her voice shook as she whispered, "What would he do to you, Ash?" The dog whimpered again, burying his head into her skirt. Then the man outside said something that chilled her to her bones. "And I need him back, before he leads anyone to the truth." Mary Ellen covered her mouth. Ash backed away, eyes wide, breathing fast. The man rattled the door handle. "Open up, Mrs. Whitcomb, or things will get ugly." Mary Ellen stepped in front of Ash, heart racing. She whispered, "No one will take you, boy. Not while I'm breathing." The door shook, the latch straining, and the man outside hissed, "I know he's in there." Mary Ellen grabbed the fire poker with shaking hands. Ash barked, desperate, waking strength he didn't have minutes before. The latch cracked. The door began to open, and part one ends here. The wooden latch groaned under the stranger's force, the old iron nails bending as the door trembled in its frame. Snow blew in through the thin cracks, catching the glow of the dying firelight and swirling across the floor like pale ghosts. Mary Ellen Whitcomb tightened her grip on the iron fire poker, her knuckles whitening, breath shaking. She was not a strong woman, not in the way the frontier demanded, but a lifetime of grief had hardened something inside her, and tonight she would not surrender. Ash stood beside her, trembling violently, teeth showing in a thin, desperate snarl. His ears flattened back, and his ribs shook under every shallow breath. Mary Ellen leaned down and whispered, "It's all right, boy. Stay close." The man outside pushed again, crack. The hinges moaned. "Mrs. Whitcomb," he growled, his voice thick with irritation, "I've no interest in you. I only want the dog. He's trouble. Always has been." Silence answered him. Mary Ellen held her breath. Ash whimpered, pressing himself against her leg as though trying to disappear into her skirts. The man's boots crunched in the snow as he shifted his stance. "I'm counting to 3. After that, I break the door." Mary Ellen's pulse pounded in her ears. 1. Ash's nails scraped the floor as he backed away. 2. Mary Ellen stepped in front of the dog, raising the poker like a spear. THR. A gunshot cracked through the night. Snow from the porch roof collapsed in a sheet, thudding onto the man outside. His heavy boots stumbled back, slipping on the newly fallen snow. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Mary Ellen, Ash, the wind itself. Then, a voice cut through the cold. "That'll be enough." Mary Ellen felt her knees loosen in both fear and relief. Because she knew that voice. The door pushed inward, not from the stranger, but from a familiar face on the other side. Sheriff Elijah Boone, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 60s, his beard white as winter frost and his wool coat worn at the elbows. His eyes, gray and steady, held the same unshakable calm he'd carried during every trouble this valley had seen since Mary Ellen was a girl. He lowered his smoking rifle. The stranger in the snow cursed, brushing powder off his shoulders. "Boone, this ain't your business." The sheriff didn't blink. "A widow alone in her home at night? That's my business." Mary Ellen exhaled shakily. The stranger spat into the snow. "I'm here for the dog. He's mine." "No," Sheriff Boone said quietly. "I reckon he ain't. He ran off," the stranger snarled. "I want what's mine." The sheriff stepped forward, his boots crunching slowly, intentionally. "You want to explain that rope burn on his neck, Tanner?" Mary Ellen's throat tightened. Tanner. That was the name she'd heard whispered at the general store. A man with a short temper, a long history of cruel work, and a reputation that made even grown men choose different roads. Tanner shifted uneasily. "He's my hunting dog. Dogs get marks." "Marks," the sheriff repeated softly. "From a rope pulled so tight a man could hang from it." Tanner's jaw tightened. Sheriff Boone didn't raise his rifle again. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to slow even the worst men. "You'll leave this property," the sheriff said. "Now!" Tanner glared past the sheriff and toward Mary Ellen's window, his eyes glinting with something cold. Anger, maybe, or fear. "This ain't over," he hissed. "The dog knows something he shouldn't. And if he leads that woman to it," he trailed off, but the threat hung sharp in the air. The sheriff raised a brow. "You saying a dog's got secrets?" Tanner's lips curled into a twisted grin. "You'd be surprised what dogs remember." With that chilling remark, he turned and trudged into the dark woods, disappearing into the storm. The sheriff watched him disappear, thumb resting on the rifle's worn stock. Only when Tanner's footsteps faded into nothing did Sheriff Boone open the door fully. He stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. Mary Ellen lowered the poker, her arms suddenly feeling very heavy. "Sheriff, thank the Lord," she whispered. The sheriff nodded toward the fire. noticing Ash curled tightly at her feet, shaking. "That dog's scared near to death," he murmured. Mary Ellen knelt beside Ash and stroked his fur. "He came to my door tonight. I don't think he's eaten in days." Sheriff Boone crouched down slowly, studying the dog with a practiced eye. "That ain't no ordinary stray," he said softly. Ash whimpered, hiding behind Mary Ellen. She ran a careful hand along Ash's neck. "It's this mark," she whispered. She brushed the fur aside, and this time the sheriff saw it clearly. A scar, long raised, curved in a strange pattern, not random, not accidental. His eyes narrowed. "I know that shape." Mary Ellen looked at him. "You do?" He nodded, grim. "It's the mark of a rope tied in a slip knot, a special kind, used only by one kind of man." Mary Ellen felt her stomach clench. "What kind?" The sheriff stood slowly, dusting snow from his coat. "A man who wanted a witness silenced." Mary Ellen's heart skipped. "A witness?" "Sheriff, he's just a dog." The sheriff shook his head. "No, Mary Ellen. That dog saw something. Something Tanner don't want getting out." Ash whimpered again, curling closer to her. The sheriff stared into the fire, his voice low. 2 weeks ago, there was trouble upriver. A farm hand went missing. Folks whispered Tanner had words with him hours before. Mary Ellen stiffened. "Tanner hurt him?" "No one knows," the sheriff said slowly. "But Tanner's dog was seen there that night. Folks said the dog ran off soon after." He met Mary Ellen's eyes. "If the dog saw something and Tanner tried to get rid of him." Mary Ellen covered her mouth. "Oh, Lord." Ash lifted his head slightly, ears twitching at the sheriff's tone. "He's terrified," the sheriff murmured. "And with Tanner around, he's in danger." Mary Ellen swallowed hard. "So am I." The sheriff gave a slow nod. "But I reckon he came to you for a reason." Mary Ellen looked down at Ash, at his trembling body, his frightened eyes, his silent plea for safety. Her heart softened. "He's just a soul looking for a home," she whispered. Ash nuzzled her fingers. The sheriff stood. "I'll check the woods before I leave. But keep your door locked, Mary Ellen. Tanner will be back." Mary Ellen's voice wavered. "And what about the dog?" The sheriff hesitated, then sighed. "Keep him close. And keep watching him." "Why?" she asked. "Because that mark on his neck ain't just a scar." He lowered his voice. "It's a message." Mary Ellen felt the room suddenly colder. "What kind of message?" she whispered. The sheriff looked at Ash with heavy eyes. "A warning." The sheriff left a minute later, lantern swinging as he disappeared into the storm. Mary Ellen shut the door quickly, latched it, and leaned back against it, her heart pounding in her chest. Ash crawled toward her, pressing his head into her lap as though begging her not to leave him. She stroked his fur slowly. "It's all right, boy, you're safe now." But even as she said the words, a chill crawled up her spine. Because she knew something now, something she hadn't known when the dog first scratched at her door. Ash was not just running from hunger. He was running from a secret someone would kill to protect. Mary Ellen wrapped her shawl around herself and Ash, pulling him close near the fire. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "What did you see that night?" Ash lifted his head, his eyes glistening in the firelight, and Mary Ellen saw something she didn't expect: recognition and fear. She leaned closer. "Show me, boy. What are you trying to tell me?" Ash turned his head toward the window, toward the dark woods, and let out a soft, mournful howl. Mary Ellen shuddered, because the howl wasn't random. It was pointed. It was directed. It was pleading, and it was aimed at the same place the sheriff mentioned, upriver. With a farmhand vanished, Ash looked back at her. His eyes spoke. He wanted her to follow him. Mary Ellen whispered, "Dear Lord, what happened upriver?" Ash pawed the floor toward the door. Outside, the wind howled like a warning, and Mary Ellen felt a truth settle deep in her bones. The stray dog she saved tonight had not wandered to her by accident. He had been sent, or led, or driven by fear, straight into her life. And whatever secret he carried, it was about to draw her into danger she had never imagined. The fire crackled softly, shadows dancing along the wooden cabin walls as the winter night deepened. Mary Ellen sat beside Ash, listening to the wind claw at the shutters. Her hands trembled slightly as she stroked the dog's fur, feeling every frightened breath moving through his thin ribs. He had stopped shaking, but his eyes were wide and alert, fixed on the dark window, as if something out there still waited. Still watched. Mary Ellen whispered, "You want me to follow you? I can see it in your eyes." Ash pressed his paw gently on her knee, then looked at the door again. A pull tugged at her chest. Upriver, where the sheriff said a farmhand disappeared. Where Tanner was last seen. Where a dog, this dog, ran away from something terrible. Mary Ellen looked around her cabin. The small table set for one. The single chair beside the fire. The bed empty of another's warmth for 2 long years. Loneliness had been her only companion, until tonight. She stood slowly. Ash's tail moved once, hesitant, hopeful. Mary Ellen wrapped her thickest wool shawl over her shoulders, then opened the small drawer beside the hearth. Inside lay a lantern, matches, and a folded letter from her late husband. Thomas's handwriting curled across the aging paper. She lifted the letter, pressing her thumb along the creased fold. "Thomas, I don't know what I'm walking into tonight," she whispered, "but I hope you'd stand by me." Her voice shook lightly. Then she struck a match, lit the lantern, and tied it to a rope belt around her waist. Ash stood, limping but determined. "Not yet," Mary Ellen whispered. "You're too weak." But he pushed past her skirt with surprising strength and sat at the door, pawing the bottom plank. She sighed softly. "You won't stay behind, even if I beg you, will you?" The dog whined, lowering his head. Mary Ellen tightened her shawl, grasped the poker, her only weapon, and unlatched the door. The wind slapped her face with cold. "Stay close," she whispered, stepping into the snow. Ash stayed at her heels. The lantern's glow trembled across the clearing as they made their way toward the river path, the snow crunching beneath Mary Ellen's boots. With every step, memories drifted up from years gone by. Walking this same path with Thomas, carrying baskets of laundry to the riverbank. Watching her children play on rocks before they grew up and moved westward. Now, she walked toward danger, toward secrets she didn't understand. And yet, she felt a strange steadiness in her chest. A purpose, as if she had been waiting for this moment longer than she realized. The path narrowed as it curved along the river. The water moved under a thin sheet of ice, whispering softly as it slid between frozen reeds. Moonlight glimmered on the surface like broken glass. Ash stopped suddenly. He sniffed the air, ears lifting. Mary Ellen lifted her lantern. "What is it, boy?" Ash stepped ahead, nose low, moving with cautious certainty. Mary Ellen followed, her breath forming pale clouds. They reached a patch of disturbed snow near the riverbank. Deep footprints, scattered dirt, broken twigs. A sign of struggle. She knelt, lantern meeting the snow. Sheriff Boone mentioned the farmhand. Ash whined and pawed at the snow beside the footprints. As Mary Ellen brushed away the fresh powder, something caught the lantern's light. A strip of cloth. Torn, dark red, stiff with frozen blood. Mary Ellen's breath caught in her throat. Oh heavens, Ash howled softly, a mournful, broken sound, as if he were calling out to someone no longer among the living. Mary Ellen shivered, not from cold, but from dread. He saw something here. She carefully folded the cloth and tucked it into her pocket. Her voice trembled. "What happened to the poor boy?" Ash's ears perked again. He turned sharply and began moving toward the woods. Not running, but steady, guiding. Determined. "Ash, wait." Mary Ellen clutched her shawl and hurried after him. "Slow down." She followed him deeper into the trees. The wind softened. The night grew quiet. Too quiet. The air felt heavier here, as if the forest itself held its breath. Ash stopped again. His body stiffened. Mary Ellen lifted the lantern and froze. There, tucked between the trees near the river's narrowing bend, stood a small shack. Decayed, roof sagging, door leaning off its hinges. It looked abandoned for years. Yet a faint wisp of smoke curled from the crooked chimney. Mary Ellen's heart skipped. "Someone's inside," Ash growled. The lantern flickered weakly against the weathered boards. Mary Ellen approached cautiously, gripping the poker tight. Ash, you stay behind. But he stepped ahead of her instead, standing between her and the shack like a sentinel. She whispered, "You brave, foolish thing," slowly, one breath at a time. She reached the shack door. Her fingers touched the frozen wood. The door creaked open. The lantern's glow spilled inside, revealing a small room with a rough cot, piles of blankets, and an overturned chair. And something else. A handwritten note pinned to the wall with a rusty nail. Ash barked once, sharp, urgent. Mary Ellen stepped forward, her hand trembling as she lifted the lantern closer. The note was written in hurried strokes, as if someone wrote while looking over their shoulder. Her eyes scanned the words. "If you find this, the boy is gone. Tanner took him upriver to hide the truth. The dog knows. Follow him." Her breath stilled. "Ash," she whispered, turning. The dog stared at her. Not afraid now. Certain. Waiting. Before she could speak, a sound shattered the silence. Branches snapped behind the shack. Footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Ash lunged in front of Mary Ellen, barking furiously. Mary Ellen gripped the poker. "Ash, stay close." A voice cut through the cold. "Well, ain't this a sight?" Mary Ellen's heart plunged. She knew the voice. Tanner. He stepped from the shadows, snow in his beard, breath steaming, eyes cold as the winter river. In his hand, he held a thick wooden club. "I warned you, Mrs. Wickham," he growled. "You should have stayed in your cabin." Mary Ellen stood her ground, poker raised, though her arms trembled with fear. Tanner smirked. "You think you can protect that dog? You don't even know what he did." Ash snarled so fiercely it echoed across the river. "I'll put that beast down," Tanner spat, "before he leads anyone to the body." Mary Ellen froze. Ash pressed against her skirt in terror. Tanner stepped closer. "You hear me? The body. The one he saw me bury." The lantern quivered in Mary Ellen's grasp. Ash's growl wavered, turning into a whimper. Tanner raised the club. "That dog ain't living past tonight, and neither are you." Mary Ellen stumbled back, shielding Ash with her body. "Get away from us," she cried. Tanner moved forward, but suddenly Ash lunged. Weak, starving, injured but brave. He threw himself at Tanner's leg, teeth sinking into the man's boot. Tanner roared, stumbling. Mary Ellen grabbed Ash. "No, Ash." But the dog wouldn't let go. Tanner kicked violently. Ash yelped. Mary Ellen screamed. Swinging the poker, it struck Tanner's arm. He cursed, then grabbed the lantern rope around Mary Ellen's waist. With one violent yank, the lantern flew from her body and smashed on the frozen ground. Oil spilled. The flame caught. The fire spread instantly. Mary Ellen gasped in horror. The spilled oil snaked across the floorboards, flames racing toward the shack, toward the woods, toward Ash. "Run," she cried. But Ash crawled toward her, dragging his hurt leg, trying to reach her even as Tanner loomed over them both. Tanner raised the club again. The fire reached a pile of dry wood outside the shack. It exploded upward with a roar of sparks. Mary Ellen shielded her eyes. Tanner stepped back, arm lifted to block the flames. Ash tried to stand, but collapsed, whimpering. Mary Ellen reached for him, and Tanner hissed the words that froze her blood. "You want to know the truth? Ask the dog what your husband was doing upriver the night he died." Mary Ellen's breath stopped. What did you say?" Tanner grinned through the smoke. "That much saw your husband's last moments." Mary Ellen's knees weakened. "Thomas. Her Thomas. Dead from fever? No, from something else?" She stared at Tanner, unable to breathe. What do you mean?" she whispered. But Tanner only smirked and stepped backward into the burning shadows of the trees. "You'll find out soon enough." Then, like a ghost swallowed by smoke, he vanished. The fire leapt higher, cracking, spreading fast. Ash whimpered, trying to stand but failing. Mary Ellen scooped him into her arms, her breath ragged, the flames reflecting in her terrified eyes. She could barely see through the smoke. Ash, stay with me," she whispered. "Please stay with me." But the dog's breathing grew faint. The fire roared toward them, catching the trees. Mary Ellen backed away, but the flames surrounded the path back home. They were trapped. She turned toward the other side of the riverbank and saw a small, narrow trail she'd never noticed before. A hidden path, leading upriver, the direction Tanner came from, the direction he wanted to keep them from. Ash's eyes fluttered open. He looked at the path, then at her. He whimpered, soft, urgent. "Follow me." Mary Ellen clutched him tight, heart pounding. "All right, boy. Lead the way." She staggered toward the hidden trail, smoke swirling around her, flames raging behind. As she stepped onto the narrow path, she heard something she wished she hadn't. A cry. A human one. High. Small. Terrified. A child cry. Upriver. Mary Ellen froze. Ash lifted his head weakly, and his eyes filled with sorrow and recognition. Mary Ellen whispered, "Dear God, there's a child." But before she could take another step, something moved behind her. A shadow. A second figure. Not Tanner. Someone else. Someone she never expected to see on this trail. Someone holding a lantern. And in the lantern light, Mary Ellen recognized the hat, the coat, the boots. "Thomas," she choked. The figure lifted the lantern higher, revealing the last face she ever expected to be alive. It was her husband, alive, standing in the firelit snow. Her world shattered. Thomas whispered, "Mary Ellen, don't follow the dog." Ash whimpered in terror. Mary Ellen dropped to her knees. "Thomas, but you're supposed to be dead." Her voice died in her throat. Thomas stepped closer, lantern flickering in his shaking hand. His voice cracked. "Mary Ellen, there are things you don't know." Mary Ellen's breath vanished into the frozen night. Her lantern was gone, smashed in the flames behind her. Only the wild, wavering light of the burning shack lit the river trail. And in that trembling glow, there stood Thomas Whitcomb, her husband, 2 years buried, 2 years mourned, 2 years prayed for, alive. Ash whimpered in her arms, as though the very sight of the man frightened him. Mary Ellen stumbled backward, knees buckling. "Thomas, Lord help me, is it truly you?" Thomas looked older, much older than she remembered. His once dark beard was now more ash than brown. His coat hung loosely on him, mud-stained and travel-worn. His boots were caked with river silt, and his eyes, those gentle blue eyes she once loved so deeply, were filled with something she had never seen before, fear. "Mary Ellen," his voice cracked as he stepped closer. "You shouldn't be here." She clutched Ash tighter. Her heart pounded so loudly she barely heard her own words. "But you died. They said it was fever. I buried you, Thomas. I buried you with my own hands." Thomas closed his eyes and shuddered, as if the memory cut him too deeply. "I know," he whispered, "and I'm sorry you had to do that." Mary Ellen's breath trembled out of her chest. Her voice rose in anguish. "Why would you make me bury an empty coffin? Why let me mourn you? Why let me live like a ghost for 2 years? Thomas took another step, but Ash snarled weakly, baring his teeth. Thomas halted, swallowing hard. "That dog. He remembers me." Mary Ellen stared at him. "What do you mean remembers you?" Thomas looked away into the burning woods. Because he knew the answer and feared it. Ash crawled from Mary Ellen's arms, forcing himself onto his feet. His injured leg shook, but he planted it firmly in the snow, placing himself between Mary Ellen and Thomas. Her voice wavered. "Thomas, I need the truth. All of it." Thomas's breathing turned ragged. "I warned you not to follow the dog." Mary Ellen pointed toward the burning shack. "Tanner tried to kill him. He said Ash saw something. Something terrible." Thomas's shoulders slumped. "I know what Tanner said, and he's right." Mary Ellen stiffened. Her shawl fluttered as the winter wind curled around them. "What did the dog see?" Thomas looked down at Ash, then at Mary Ellen. Pain tightened every line in his face. "He saw me." Mary Ellen's stomach sank. "And what did he see you do?" Thomas hesitated, long enough for the flames behind them to roar higher, sending sparks into the sky like fireflies fleeing a nightmare. Finally, quietly, he whispered, "He saw me the night I should have died." Mary Ellen felt her knees weaken. "Thomas, did you run away? Did you choose to leave me?" His eyes widened almost in offense. "No, never." "Then what happened?" Thomas squeezed his eyes shut, face contorted with guilt. I was taken. Mary Ellen blinked. Taken? By who? Thomas lifted a shaking hand and pointed upstream toward the narrower bend of the river, where the trail vanished into the thick trees. By the same men who killed the farmhand. The same men Tanner works for. The same men I tried to expose. A cold chill swept through Mary Ellen's blood. The same men who gave Ash that mark? She whispered. Thomas nodded. And the same men, he added, voice cracking, who left that child crying in the woods. Mary Ellen felt the world tilt beneath her boots. She clutched the tree trunk beside her for balance. There's a child upriver, she whispered. Tanner all but admitted it. Thomas shut his eyes. Ash was that child's protector. He tried to save him. That's why Tanner tried to hang him. But Ash got away. Mary Ellen's heart twisted. Ash led me here for a reason. Thomas nodded slowly. He led you, because you're the only one who can help them now. The snow quieted, the flakes falling slower, heavier, as if the sky itself held its breath. Mary Ellen stepped closer to Thomas, tears burning her eyes. Why did they take you, Thomas? He answered in a whisper. Because I found out what Tanner and his men were doing upriver. Mary Ellen's voice trembled. What were they doing? Thomas glanced toward the burning shack, as though afraid the flames might carry his confession away too quickly. They were taking people, he said. Anyone who got too close to their smuggling trail. Anyone who questioned their business. I stumbled on their meeting by chance. He paused, swallowing hard. They tried to kill me, beat me, left me half dead. But one of their own, a man I barely knew, told them to leave my body near the old mill. Mary Ellen gasped softly. So the fever story, a lie, Thomas whispered. Spun by Tanner, so no one would look for me. And I was too weak to make a home. I thought I'd die. He looked at Ash, and something like gratitude flickered in his eyes. But that dog found me, Thomas said. Kept me warm with his own body. Barked for help until someone heard. Mary Ellen looked down at Ash, eyes filling. You saved him, she whispered. And then he saved you right back. Thomas nodded. But when I learned how deep Tanner's men were involved, that they'd begun taking children too. Mary Ellen's breath froze. Children. Thomas's voice tightened with grief. They used the river bend to hide what they do. Anyone, any witness was dealt with. Mary Ellen felt cold seep through her bones. And the farmhand? She whispered. Dead, Thomas said, the word trembling. He saw something he shouldn't have. And the child? Her voice broke. Thomas looked upriver again. There's a shack deeper into the woods. One Tanner doesn't know I found. That's where they brought the child. Ash tried to protect him. Mary Ellen clutched her shawl around her. Then we must go now. Thomas hesitated, shaking his head. No, you shouldn't be part of this. They'll kill you if they find you. Mary Ellen stepped toward him. No hesitation. I already lost you once, she whispered fiercely. I won't lose you again. Thomas's breath caught. For the first time, his eyes softened with something warm, aching familiar. Mary Ellen, she took his hand. You disappeared for 2 years. And tonight, I find you alive because a terrified dog scratched at my door. God didn't bring me this far to turn back. Ash barked softly, as if agreeing. Thomas stared at her, torn between fear and relief. You always were braver than you knew. Mary Ellen lifted her chin. We're going upriver. Together. But before Thomas could answer, the forest snapped with sound. Heavy footsteps, breaking twigs, multiple voices. Men, coming fast. Ash crouched, growling low. Mary Ellen grasped Thomas's wrist. Hide, Thomas whispered, pulling her behind a fallen tree. They crouched low as the burning shack behind them crackled and fell in on itself, illuminating the clearing. Through the fire's glow, Mary Ellen saw them, for men. Dark coats, guns slung across their backs, faces hidden by scarves against the cold. Tanner's men. The biggest of them stepped forward, voice rough. Search the area. If the widow's still alive, she'll be with the mutt. And if Whitcomb's ghost shows up again, put him in the ground for real. Mary Ellen's breath hitched. Thomas's jaw tightened. Ash's growl grew louder. Mary Ellen clamped a hand gently over his muzzle. Easy, boy, easy. The men spread through the woods, lanterns swinging. "Tracks lead this way," one shouted. Thomas's breath quickened. "They'll find us," he whispered urgently. "We need to move, now." Mary Ellen nodded. But when they turned to slip deeper into the trees, one of the men swung his lantern, eyes narrowing. "There!" Mary Ellen froze. He spotted them. "Run!" Thomas shouted, grabbing her arm. Ash barked fiercely and sprang ahead. Mary Ellen ran, breath ragged, feet slipping in the snow. Thomas stayed beside her, pulling her through the hidden path Ash seemed to know by heart. Behind them, men shouted, boots thundering over ice. "Don't let them reach the river bend." A gunshot split the air. A bullet struck the tree inches from Mary Ellen's head. Ash barked, urging them forward. Mary Ellen cried out, "Thomas, we can't outrun them." "Yes, we can," he shouted back. But the voice behind them chilled her to the bone. "Bring the dog alive." Tanner roared. "The woman and the husband." "I don't care." Mary Ellen stumbled. Thomas caught her. Snow flew around them like torn pages of winter. The men closed in. She heard branches snapping, breaths growing closer, and then Ash suddenly stopped at a narrow break in the trees. He looked back at Mary Ellen, at Thomas, then down at the ground. Mary Ellen gasped. There was a trapdoor hidden beneath a layer of snow and leaves. A door built into the earth. Ash dug at it desperately. Thomas's eyes widened. "That's it. That's the place. That's where they hid the child." Mary Ellen dropped to her knees, scraping away snow with her bare hands. Footsteps crashed through the woods. No time. Thomas pulled the trapdoor open. A cold, damp darkness gaped beneath. He gestured urgently. Mary Ellen, inside. She hesitated only a heartbeat, then climbed down, clutching Ash as he whimpered in fear. Thomas followed, pulling the door down after them. They landed in a cramped underground room. Dirt floor, tiny crates, old blankets, and in the corner, something small moved. A soft cry. Mary Ellen's heart stopped. It was a child. A little boy, no older than 4. Weak, frightened, wrapped in a thin blanket. Mary Ellen covered her mouth. "Dear Lord," Ash whined and crawled toward the child. But before Mary Ellen could move, Thomas grabbed her arm, eyes wide with dread. "Mary Ellen, wait." She looked at him, trembling. "What is it?" Thomas's voice quivered. "That boy. Mary Ellen. I think he's ours." The underground shelter smelled of damp earth and old wood. Mary Ellen's lantern was gone. Only the faint glow of moonlight leaked through cracks in the trapdoor above. In that dim, trembling light, Mary Ellen stared at the little boy curled on the dirt floor, small, shivering, frightened. Ash limped toward him, tail low, ears pressed back. The child stirred, a soft whimper escaping his lips. Mary Ellen pressed a hand to her chest. "Oh, sweetheart." Thomas's grip on her arm tightened. "Mary Ellen, listen to me." She tore her eyes away from the boy and faced her husband, her face pale, breath shaking. "Thomas, what are you saying? What do you mean he's ours?" Thomas swallowed hard, sinking to one knee beside her, the fear on his face deeper than any she'd seen before. "Mary Ellen, please sit." But she shook her head violently. "No, no more secrets. Not tonight. Tell me the truth while I'm still breathing." Thomas exhaled slowly. His eyes glistened. "If I tell you, it will break your heart." Mary Ellen pointed at the trembling boy. "Not telling me is breaking it already." Ash sat beside the child, gently licking the boy's tiny hand. The child whimpered, but didn't pull away. Mary Ellen's breath caught. "He trusts Ash," she whispered. "Like he knows him." Thomas closed his eyes. "He does." Mary Ellen jerked her hand back. "What are you hiding from me?" Thomas looked at the dirt, not at her. 2 years before I disappeared, I made a mistake. A terrible one. Mary Ellen's stomach twisted. I took work up north, clearing land for a logging camp. Money was good, better than farming. I thought it would help us. I thought it was temporary. Mary Ellen's voice wavered. "You were gone almost 6 months," Thomas nodded. "And when I came back, I carried a secret I didn't dare tell you. A secret I planned to bury." Mary Ellen's mouth dried. "Thomas, what secret?" He looked at the child, then at her. The boy's mother. Mary Ellen stepped back as if struck. Thomas's voice broke. I did not betray you in the way you're thinking. I swear before God, I loved you and only you. But one night, the camp erupted into violence. Men drunk, shouting, fists flying. A young woman was hurt. Badly. He swallowed hard. They dragged her into my cabin because I was the only man left sober. Mary Ellen steadied herself against the wall. What happened? I cared for her for 3 nights, Thomas whispered. Fed her. Kept her alive. She was terrified. She spoke hardly any English. And one night, she told me something. Mary Ellen's heart pounded in her ears. She said the men at the camp had been stealing, smuggling, using the river trail to hide goods. And she saw them kill someone. She was a witness. Mary Ellen's voice cracked. Like the farmhand? Exactly, Thomas whispered. She was running, but she was pregnant. Mary Ellen's breath caught. A child? Thomas nodded. I promised her I would help her escape. I hid her, fed her, but Tanner's men tracked her down. They beat me so badly I barely lived. They took her. Mary Ellen pressed her fingers to her lips as tears welled in her eyes. Oh Lord, I looked for her for weeks, Thomas whispered. Found a shack upriver where they kept her. Found evidence she'd given birth. But both she and the child were gone. Mary Ellen trembled. And then, 2 years later, after my death, I found this boy hiding in the woods. Ash protected him. And when he saw me, he recognized me. Mary Ellen's heart shattered. How would he know you? Thomas's voice dropped to a whisper. Because I delivered him. Mary Ellen staggered back. Thomas reached for her arm. Mary Ellen, she pulled away. You helped bring a child into this world. A child you never told me about. Thomas's voice shook with anguish. I didn't know he lived. I didn't know where they hid him. And by the time I found him, I was half dead myself. I planned to come home to you, tell you everything, but Tanner's men found me first. Mary Ellen wiped tears from her cheeks. So this child, her voice broke, is not yours by blood? Thomas shook his head firmly. No, Mary Ellen. He belongs to the woman I tried to save. Not to me, but I made a promise to protect him. He knelt before her. You have done the same. You have more goodness in you than any soul I've met. Mary Ellen's shoulders trembled. You should have told me, she whispered. I know, he said. I feared losing you. Her chin quivered. You did lose me. For 2 years, they stared at each other, 2 souls torn by the distance of lies and danger. Thomas lowered his gaze. But the boy is in danger still. The men who took his mother want him gone. He carries proof. Mary Ellen stiffened. Proof of what? Thomas lifted something small from his coat pocket. A thin metal pendant, its shape faded by age. I found this in the shack. It belonged to his mother. Mary Ellen took it gently. It was light, worn, almost fragile. A small symbol was etched into the metal surface. Her eyes widened. I've seen this before, so has the dog, Thomas said. That's why Tanner wants him silenced. Mary Ellen stared at Ash. Ash stared at her. Then Ash glanced at the little boy. His tail tapped once. Mary Ellen felt something strange settle in her heart. A connection, a thread, a calling she couldn't ignore. She knelt beside the boy. His eyes flickered open, big, brown, full of fear. Mary Ellen smiled gently, tears glistening. Sweetheart, it's all right. You're safe. The boy whimpered faintly, reaching for Ash. Ash licked his hand. Mary Ellen touched the boy's cheek softly. What's your name, darling? The boy didn't speak. Thomas's face tightened. He hasn't spoken since the night his mother disappeared. Ash is the only one he trusts. Mary Ellen's heart clenched. Then we must keep him with us. Thomas nodded. We will, but we don't have long. Tanner's men saw our tracks. They know we came upriver. Footsteps thundered above them. Mary Ellen gasped. Thomas grabbed her hand. Stay quiet. She held Ash close. 3 men stomped around the clearing, cursing. Ain't no way they got far. Find the dog. They couldn't vanish. Search the trees. Mary Ellen pressed her back against the cold dirt wall, shaking. Thomas whispered. They're close, the boy whimpered, clinging to Ash. A lantern beam swept across the trapdoor's edges above. Mary Ellen's heart stopped. If they found the door, we can't stay here, Thomas whispered. We'll be trapped. Mary Ellen nodded, wiping her tears quickly. What do we do? Thomas looked around the small underground room. There was only one exit, the trapdoor they used, until Ash suddenly scratched at the dirt in the far corner. Mary Ellen blinked. Ash, what is it? Ash dug faster. Thomas's eyes widened. There's something under there. Ash scraped the earth until a wooden plank appeared beneath the dirt surface. Thomas rushed over. It's another tunnel. Mary Ellen felt hope's spark in her chest. Ash barked softly, urging Thomas to hurry. Above them, a man shouted, I found footprints, right beside the shed. Mary Ellen grabbed the boy, lifting him gently. Thomas pried the plank up. A dark tunnel stretched into the earth beneath the river's roots. Mary Ellen, go. Now. She climbed in first, the boy in her arms. Ash jumped in. After her. Thomas slipped in last and pulled the plank back over them. The footsteps above grew louder. Men shouted. Lanterns flicked. Then a gunshot blasted the air. Mary Ellen flinched, nearly dropping the boy. Thomas whispered, breathless, they're trying to break the trapdoor. Mary Ellen crawled deeper into the tunnel. Ash, she whispered, lead us. Ash crawled ahead, trembling but determined. Thomas stayed behind them, pushing them forward. But before they could move far, a loud, splintering crack echoed above. They're in. Get the lantern down there. Check the hole. A lantern beam shot through the cracks in the plank overhead. Thomas froze. Mary Ellen froze. Even Ash went still. The boy whimpered softly in her arms. The lantern beam moved along the dirt, then stopped directly above them. Mary Ellen covered the boy with her shawl, heart pounding. Thomas held his breath. Ash pressed into Mary Ellen's side. And then a voice spoke from above. Soft, cold, recognizable. Tanner. Well, he whispered. I see a tunnel. Mary Ellen's blood ran cold. Tanner laughed, a low, chilling sound. Run as far as you want, Whitcomb. The river won't save you. Thomas's hand tightened around Mary Ellen's shoulder. Tanner's boots scraped the floor, and he said the words that froze all of them in place. I know exactly where that tunnel leads. Mary Ellen's heart stopped. Thomas whispered, no, not there. Ash whimpered, licking the boy's cheek. Mary Ellen whispered, Thomas, where does it lead? Thomas closed his eyes. To the river caves, he breathed, and there's only one way out. Mary Ellen swallowed hard. And where is that? Thomas answered, his voice barely a whisper. The place Tanner dumps the bodies. The tunnel narrowed until Mary Ellen could barely crawl. Her palms slid over cold earth. Her breath fogged the tight space ahead. Behind her, Thomas urged her forward with quiet urgency, and Ash wriggled at her side, guiding her through pitch darkness. In her arms, the boy trembled violently, small fingers clinging to her shawl as though she was the last safe thing in the world. Mary Ellen whispered gently into his hair, It's all right, sweetheart. I've got you. I won't let anything take you. But her words shook. She didn't know if she was reassuring him or herself. Above them, men's boots thundered. Tanner's voice echoed through the trapdoor. You can run the tunnels, Whitcomb, but sooner or later, you'll end up in the same place as the others. Thomas whispered harshly, Go faster, Mary Ellen. Please, we don't have much time. Mary Ellen crawled, knees bruising against the hard earth. The boy whimpered, burying his face in her collar. Ash nudged her wrist with his nose, urging her forward, tail trembling. The air grew colder, damper, heavy with the smell of river water and stone. Mary Ellen felt it before she saw it. Open space. The tunnel widened, the ground sloping downward. Moonlight trickled in through cracks above, faint and distant, but enough to reveal where they'd arrived. Mary Ellen gasped. They were inside the river caves, hollow chambers carved by centuries of rushing water. Stalactites hung like fangs from the ceiling. The ground sloped toward a hidden pool of black, still water. Ash whined, stepping close to the water's edge. Thomas crawled out beside Mary Ellen, panting. We need to cross, he said. There's an exit on the far side. Mary Ellen hugged the boy close. Is it safe? Thomas hesitated. No, but staying here is worse. Ash barked once, staring into the dark stretch of cave. But before they could move, a sound echoed through the tunnel behind them. Voices. Footsteps. Coming fast. Mary Ellen gasped. They're in the tunnels. Thomas's face went white. We need to cross the water now. But the water was deep, deep enough that Mary Ellen could not see the bottom. The reflection of the burning shack above flickered across its surface like orange fire snakes. The child clung to her, terrified of the water. It's all right, she whispered. You'll be with me. Thomas stepped toward the water, boots splashing. But Ash blocked him, growling sharply, ears pinned, eyes locked on something across the cave. Mary Ellen followed Ash's gaze and froze. On the far side of the cavern, standing in the shadows, illuminated only by the distant moonlight through a crack in the stone, was a woman. Thin, still, eyes reflecting like glass. Mary Ellen's breath caught. Her dress clung to her like it had been soaked. Her hair hung loose, tangled. Her face was pale, drawn, haunted. Thomas whispered, "No, that can't be." Mary Ellen's voice shook. Who is she?" Ash whimpered, tail low. The woman stepped forward. Her voice trembled through the cavern. "Tom?" Thomas stumbled backward. "It's her," he whispered. "It's the boy's mother." Mary Ellen felt her heart thunder. "But she's been gone for years." The woman stepped closer. Her bare feet touched the wet stone without sound. Her eyes locked on the little boy in Mary Ellen's arms and softened. Mary Ellen's voice cracked. "You're alive." The woman nodded weakly. "Barely. I hid for so long because I wanted us dead." Mary Ellen felt tears fill her eyes. The boy reached out a trembling hand. He whispered. His first word. Mary Ellen gasped. Thomas covered his mouth, trying not to sob aloud. The woman held out her hands, voice breaking. "My son, give him to me. Please." Mary Ellen's heart clenched as she looked at the boy, his shaking hands as wide, teary eyes, Ash pressing close to him to reassure him. She gently set him down. He ran across the stone floor into his mother's arms. The woman knelt, crying softly into his hair. "My baby, my brave boy." Mary Ellen covered her chest with her hand, her tears falling freely. "So it's true," she whispered. "Thomas did save you. Both of you." The woman nodded weakly. "He saved me. He hid us, but Tanner found us again. They took my boy, left me for dead." Thomas stepped forward, grief contorting his face. "I try to find you. I swear it. I looked for months." The woman touched his cheek gently. "I know. Tom, I know." Ash whined, licking the boy's hands. Mary Ellen stood quietly, heart full and breaking all at once. But the moment shattered. Boots thudded into the cavern behind them. Voices shouted, "He's here! Wickham's here! Grab the woman and the kid!" Mary Ellen spun around. Lantern light flooded the cave. Tanner appeared at the mouth of the tunnel, rifle raised, face twisted in cold fury. "Well, look at this," he sneered. "The whole happy family reunion." Ash growled, stepping in front of the woman and child. Tanner lifted the rifle. "Move aside, Mutt." Mary Ellen stepped forward. "You'll harm none of them," she said, voice trembling but fierce. "Not while I'm breathing." Tanner smirked. "You're just a widow with a rusted poker." Stand azide. Thomas stepped in front of her. "No." Tanner leveled the gun at Thomas. "You should have died 2 years ago." Ash barked, lunging. Tanner fired. The shot exploded through the cavern. Mary Ellen screamed. Ash yelped. The bullet grazed his side, but he kept going, hurling himself at Tanner with all the strength he had left. Tanner fell back, cursing, rifle clattering on stone. Thomas grabbed Mary Ellen's hand. "Run!" They fled toward the far passage, the woman clutching her son, Ash limping but barreling ahead, the men shouting behind them. A second gunshot rang out, the cave ceiling cracked. Mary Ellen froze, eyes wide. "Run!" Thomas cried. Too late. With a thunderous roar, the cave ceiling collapsed. Rock and earth crashing down, splitting the world in two. Dust filled the air. Mary Ellen stumbled, coughing, shielding the boy's mother with her body. When a rumbling ceased, silence. Tanner and his men were trapped on the other side. Mary Ellen gasped for air. Thomas pulled her close, voice shaking. "You're safe for now." The woman clutched her son tightly, sobbing. And Ash, bleeding, shaking but alive, pressed himself against Mary Ellen's leg. She knelt, tears falling into his fur. "Oh, Ash, you saved us. You saved all of us." Ash wagged his tail slowly, weakly, his eyes soft with relief. Mary Ellen held his face in her hands. "You brave boy, you blessed creature. You found the truth and brought us together." Thomas wrapped his arms around them all. "We'll take the tunnel out the north end," he whispered. "The sheriff knows this place. He'll find Tanner." Mary Ellen lifted her face. The river caves shimmered with moonlight through a narrow opening ahead. A new beginning, a new path, a new family, bound not by blood, but by choice, rescue, and love. She rose slowly, holding Ash close. "Let's go home," she whispered. They walked toward the light, toward a new dawn. The boy looked back at Mary Ellen with wide, trusting eyes. And, for the first time in years, Mary Ellen's heart felt warm again, alive again, complete again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tales from the Old West, where every tale brings warmth, wisdom, and the beauty of a life well lived.